Hello, my name is Milorad, and today I'm going to talk about a mod nation that I created. It's called Rhuaxa, the Molten ones. Um, I have not put out any content in a while for Opinion 6. I wanted to try something different. This is kind of a showcase of a mod that I created. Um, Not an expert at creating mods or anything like that. I have several on the Steam workshop. My name on there is Hajduk, Hajduk. I'll put the link in the description. So I wanted to start with the mod that I think is the most vanilla friendly. Um, I made sure try to make this fit the lore as much as possible. So the premise is that this is Abysia without blood anymore, earth and astral. And I always found it a little frustrating with Abysia. I don't think you ever get more than one Earth in any age, unless you get an extremely rare random. So, you end up really not being able to use Earth at all, other than for combat, I mean, other than for like liquid flames of Rhuaxa and limited amount of magma bolts, right? Um, so the premise here is that with the blood worship of the warlocks in early age, there were Abyssians who were dissidents. They did not like this, which is mentioned in the lore. So the idea is that those Abyssians who dissented, they kind of split. But there was no civil war because in the lore, Abysia fights a war called the Tide of Fire against the Rephaim, against Hinnom. So that takes up all their attention. And then I made it so such that the exiles go underground to avoid a war. Okay, and then um, they change over time where their skin cools and it becomes harder, kind of like a more of a magma style, like where the magma hardens and becomes kind of like what you see around volcano flows. So what is standard in these is they no longer have um, the heat aura, and they have lower fire resistance, only 15, but they all have natural protection 5, which stacks with their armor, and they all have affliction resistance 1 to show they're kind of like very tough. Um, and then to add a variety, I incorporated pale ones. So the idea was that, it's canon in early age that Agartha opens the cursed chamber and destroys their society, their civilization, um, and that's why the humans move in Middle Age. Well, the idea is that some Pale Ones who escape, um, they're refugees. They go underground deeper, and they run into these Abyssians have exiled, so the Molten Ones. And because they have so much in common, they both prefer heat. Neither of them is very reliant on growth scales, um, because the pale ones don't eat. They can both see underground. I thought it would be very synergistic for them to work together. However, the pale ones are kind of viewed with scorn and contempt by the Abyssians because they fled uh, their civilization. And then the last, kind of sub race within this faction is the human breds. If you recall, in Middle Age, Abysia starts experimenting with creating human Abyssian crossbreed, and they are kept as slaves. They have a slave tag, which reduces their upkeep. So the idea here is that some human breds human breeds escape from Abysia, and they go and they meet up with Rhuaxa. But here they are considered free. They're no hum the slave tag, which means they have a better morale, but they also cost more. Okay, so that's kind of the overall like preview, and I kind of want to go into just briefly talk about some of the units and how this nation you may want to play it. Again, this is not like a crazy overpowered nation with lots of crazy mechanics like you see with some very skilled modders. The intent here was to make it that you could stick this in Middle Age, and it wouldn't be overpowered. So they always start underground. I made it that way, where they have a cave start, yeah. So we're gonna go through some of the units and then the commanders, and then I'll talk about the summons and kind of like how you might want to play this nation. Okay, so the human breads, like we said, 15 fire resistance, partial dark vision. They all have skirmisher. These are your few range weapons. So you have the variety with the axe and a throwing axe, and you have a variety with spear and a javelin. These are also the troops that go on the walls. They're very mediocre. They're kind of expensive, but I wanted to keep the price the same as the middle-aged human bread and the recruitment points. They do have better armor because I guess they value their lives a little bit more than if they were slaves. I manually increased their speed slightly to justify maybe wanting to buy such a light troops. These are not bad, especially when you're expanding underground. You have a lot of units or enemies with the very weak armor, like cavemen, Berkarides, pale ones. So the javelins and axes are really good against those. Axe does more damage, but this one is more likely to repel. Okay, and then you have these four are the real Molten ones. So we're going to start with the light infantry. We say light because he only has a chainmail cuirass, but when you mix it with natural protection, it comes out to 16 body, 21 head with the kite shield. That's really good. So that means that you combine kite shield with the body protection. It's like over 30, which means a crossbow. If you're fighting an opponent with a crossbow at middle age, it will have a difficulty damaging them as long as it hits the shield. Because if you reduce their armor by 65%, it's still going to be more than 11 here, which means they have a better than average chance of not being damaged as long as they get hit in the shield. Also, they're very, very effective against like short bows and composite bows. So you might want to have like independent short bows. Build them so they fire into the melee, and they're less likely to take a friendly fire. So this variety has a spear, 15 fire resist, dark vision 50, mountain survival, affliction resistance 1. What this really means is like 25% of the time that you would get an affliction, you're not going to get one. You may not even really notice this, but over time it kind of cuts down attrition. Fewer guys will have a limp, fewer of those limp will become crippled, and so on. This is a same chassis, except he has a mace, so it's a little more damage, but this one can repel. So the idea is you really want, especially the spear version, these to be in the center, kind of to hold the anchoring. And then you have your two heavier ones. Yeah, so the map move is 12 on these. The these are slower. They have a map move 10. Now, underground, it's not going to matter because they're pretty much always moving one province at a time. But above ground, it does matter. Okay, so this one has a heavier armor on his body, so it comes up to 18, but no shield. So you have the battle axe variety, which is this is basically the same thing as the Middle Age Abyssian one. It's just cheaper and doesn't have the heat aura. A little bit more recruitment points because I was trying to balance it. And then you have this variety with the custom length 3 Warhammer. This one does blunt and pierce, and this, of course, is slashing, a little better attack, a little better length. It's about the same. You just kind of pick which one will fit the situation you're in. Okay, now Sacred. This is the same Molten 1 chassis, but he has a more fire resistance because he has a magical armor. This is the same as if you had the item, the Construction 3 item. Better shield, also magic. This means that you can do a destruction spell, and their magic armor and shield are less likely to be affected, but the helmet is not. Their weapon is unique, so it looks like a low damage because it's only 15, but it has a secondary effect of 8 AP damage. So this is essentially as if he has a free magic weapons and free fire weapons bless for no extra money, right? Or design points. So some targets, the 8 AP will not be enough to do anything to them. And where this seems to, from my testing, help the most is actually against medium and light armored to kill them quicker. So what I mean by this is, you know how if you were struck in a limb, there's a maximum amount of damage that can be done. Like on a human chassis, it's usually 5 because they cap it. Now, normally, even if you hit for like 40, it will cap it at 5. But this fire AP will trigger on top of that. And often that will be enough to do the extra damage to kill the target in one total hit. Against heavier armor, you're usually not going to be able to get through 8 AP. However, overall, it's a pretty good weapon because it's, magic damage. You have a lot of things underground that could be potentially ethereal, such as shades, shade beast, I forgot the name, the little demons that show up with the Bakemono, their second form. So this is useful in expansion, especially. Now, this is not like a crazy overpowered Sacred. Like, he's pretty good protection, but capital only, it's very slow to make a large number of these. So it's probably not something you're going to want to do a Hell Bless on. But, gives them some flavor, because the idea with this is that these are like the warrior cleric for the cult of Catharsis, which I'll talk about when we get to the mages. Okay, and then the pale ones. So most of them do not have fire resistance, which can come into play if you're going to be doing, if you're going to be using summons with heat auras, or you're going to be throwing lots of battlefield fire magic. Also, if you do something like Heat for Hell later on in enchantment, it is something to consider. So you have 3 varieties. They can only be made in cave or mountain forts. Now, because you start underground, that's not going to be an issue until really you move above ground, where you're going to only be able to recruit the molten ones and the human breds. Okay, so this variety, he's average protection, just a buckler, short sword. It's not very good. Where I see you maybe using these is this is the cheapest way to get the most siege strength on this nation. because the other pale ones cost more. Also, if you put up some type of battlefield darkness, such as a solar eclipse, they have 100% dark vision. They're unaffected. So that means that, like a standard enemy human line troop with 10 attack will go down to 7. Now he's much better. Your Abyssians have, if your Molten ones, they have a 50%, so they will get -1. Now, is that alone worth building this? Probably not. But, they're also amphibian. They can cross rivers if you're going to be high heat above ground. They can also go underground or underwater, but they have all iron equipment. So you have to take that into consideration. This is kind of a unique type of unit. So this one has limited fire resistance because they have a special equipment that allows them to throw their magma rocks given to them by their Molten 1 allies. So they have some fire protection. They can be used in conjunction with the other troops if you're going to do an all flame resistant strategy. But it's not enough to like tank a fireball. So what their claim to fame is they have like 4 ammunition, sort of like how the Xibalba one has a 4 on their darts. And it scales 1-to-1 with strength for both range and damage. Damage is combination, blunt, and fire. So there's 2 ways to resist it in theory. But the fire means also that it can light an enemy on fire after hitting them. So 17 blunt is not a lot of damage, especially if the enemy has a shield. But a lot of your Molten 1 troops will be resistant to this friendly fire. And this is not bad, even though their precision is low. They have a low range. So they can kind of throw it in to the beginning of the first couple rounds of melee to add extra damage. Also, because they scale 1-to-1, if you put Gift of Strength on them, they will go up to 21 damage, which is, quite a bit. Not as much as a boulder, but it's more accurate. It has more ammunition. And then Pale 1 Hoplite. This is like elite, so he has the most recruitment points. I looked at the cost for Cavern Guard and kind of made it off of that. What's unique about him is he has, oh look, finally, Pale 1 with the human baseline stats, right? So this is his so-called elite. He has like 1 extra morale, 10 base attack, still low defense, but he's also formation fighter. So what this means is you could have, quite a bit of HP in 1 square. But they also have the lowest map move of anything, so they really slow down the army. Underground, again, it's not going to matter. Above ground, it does matter more. These are, probably not going to be your main troops because they don't have a fire resistance and they're pretty slow. But it's just something I wanted to give you an opportunity to use a Pale 1 if you wanted to. That's not the complete terrible troop. So the detested tag, I put this for flavor, for lore, on all of the Pale 1 troops. Like the way this is supposed to work is if you put them with the other troops, that they would take a -1 morale. However, it appears to be bugged because I can't get it to work. If you put them in the same squad, it doesn't actually affect their morale. So this is here right now just as flavor. If Winter manages to fix this, or maybe I just don't understand it correctly, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't work. It will then, in the future, you would not want to mix these Pale 1s with the other troops. Okay, so now going to commanders. This is a spy. I did not give them assassin because I wanted to differentiate Rhuaxa more from Abysia. So there's no assassins on this nation. It kind of fits the lore. They're not really like, warlocks and blood and they're less, I guess, evil, air quotes, evil. Nobody's really like completely evil in Dominions. Anyway, so you start with this. He's a spy. 2 recruitment points. The idea is that he goes above ground and looks to see if it's safe for them to come out. You probably wouldn't build a lot of these, but this is your starting scout. This is your standard 100 leadership, 3 formations, but no magic leadership, which is relevant because you're going to have some summons. Nothing much to say about him. Does have a magic weapon, mostly for flavor. So, okay, so now you have 2 like religions sort of in Rhuaxa. So the lore, there's 3 kings of elemental fire. Rhuax is the main one. And the state religion, this is like they all follow Rhuax, right? You have the big anointed, and then you have the smaller one. But there's also competing state religion called the cult of catharsis. So the idea is that they want to bring, catharsis in the lore got corrupted by Calum to become Anthrax, and that's why you get the what's it called? You get like a child of Anthrax or something like that as a hero for Abysia in later ages. So the idea is this cult, the Abyssian race is dying off, which is part of the lore. They think that if they undo the corruption of catharsis into Anthrax, then all the kings of elemental fire will be pure and they'll save themselves. So it kind of, there's really 2, like, all your mages are holy, sacred. You have like 2 flavors. So the ones with the orange red are Rhuax, and the ones with the white are catharsis. So this one is any fort. He's a holy 2, which is the highest you get, and 1 random fire or astral. Better researcher and +1 morale, but only has 50 leadership. It's not bad in an early game to kind of move things around. Also to build infrastructure when you're making a fort. Then you have the combat version of the cult of catharsis. This is a purifier. So he's sacred but no holy, so no holy magic, because he's mostly dedicated to fighting. Fire 1, astral 1, random 1 of each, right? So you could have 2 fire and basically do mostly fire stuff, 2 astral, do mostly astral stuff. He has a little bit of a research malice. The idea is this is not to sit around and research, they want to be out fighting. Then you have this one, Acolyte of Rhuax, 1 fire, 1 earth, 1 holy. The random is fire or earth with the rare of the same. So again, like his counterpart, the purifier, it's going to matter whether he gets 2 fire and mostly do fire stuff, or 2 earth and mostly do earth stuff. With the earth power, he can easily go to earth 3 and then do all kinds of stuff, like boosting the armor with the Legions of Steel, boosting a strength, earth grip, magma bolts, all that kind of stuff. And then this is the cap only one. So this is, we had the anointed of Rhuax in early age. Now they disappear in middle age, and they don't really explain in the official lore what happens to them. So my idea is that they joined the Molten ones in exile underground, which explains why they're available to not available to middle age Abysia, but they are available to Rhuaxa. That's just my kind of way of trying to explain it. So they're no longer Holy 3. They're more martial, like one-on-one combat. 3 fire, 3 earth, rare random. They're very powerful combatants. battle mages. They also have firepower, and they have a heat, which other ones don't. So they're like the only ones that have a heat aura. I also gave them like a new unique weapon. This is similar to a Star of Heroes in construction. So whenever he strikes, does damage, it will break the armor. And there's no MR negates on this. So as long as it's not the magic armor, it will break. Breaking armor is different than what you get with the destruction spell. It does even more reduction. Now, obviously, this is a cap only one attack. It's not going to see this a lot, but it might come up. It might be relevant. They can be a light thug with these paths, but really, they're more likely to be like a powerful battle mage. And they have good leadership as well, and they have magic, which is important if you're going to be moving around with summons. Finally, you have this one. This text down here is wrong. I need to fix it. This is in all caves and all mountains with the lab. So you have a potential to skyrocket your research quite a bit because you have the 13 with a foreign recruit, but they're expensive. This one's not holy. The idea is that these are the pale ones that they have this similar pass to early age Gartha, which is fire, water, earth, and a little bit of death, rare. And they have fortune teller quite a bit. So they're like a synthesis of the two mages you get in early age Agartha. They lead the pale ones, and they're in the allies with the molten ones. But they're expensive. They're not holy. They're not part of the official religion. But they're still interesting because they introduce a new path you don't have, although it's very low. You're probably going to just be doing site searching and low-level spells. But they can also do Bane Fire Darts. And you also get up to 2 water, which is, pretty powerful because you have a water fire crosspath, so you can do acid spells, acid bolt, even acid rain with the booster. That gives you another way to do damage that isn't fire, earth, or astral. Okay, and then we're going to go into the sites and the summons. So the site, this is your main site. You get your Capolni Sacred Commander, 1 fire, 2 earth. If you use a 2 fire plus mage, you can make 1 magma child. Now, it's not very impactful, but at the beginning of the game, it can help. Especially against like a Shade or Shade Beast provinces underground, because the magma child has a fire shield. And then this is the other Temple Catharsis. This makes your Sacred Troop, gives you 1 fire, 1 astral. So you have a 2 fire, 2 earth, and 1 astral income. These are your summons. Magma Child is not unique, to this nation, but I wanted to include it because they are the children of Rhuaxa. They have low protection, which can be buffed. They're not spirit form. They have the fire shield and firepower. These are not bad, but they will die quickly, even to projectiles. So you gotta be careful how you use them. They do need magic leadership. This is the other one. I borrowed this sprite from Dominions 5 Magic Enhanced. So this is a child of Catharsis who hasn't been corrupted. You can only summon them, you can't build them. So they're ethereal, and they have 10 invulnerability, which is not a lot. And then all 1 because they're so brilliantly hot. Their attack is unique because it does extra damage against demons and undead. They're kind of cleansing everything. So you can make these. They're sacred, so they take your bless. It would be interesting to see what kind of bless would serve both them and your sacred, because if you went, for example, hard skin or bark skin to bring them up to additional protection of 10 to stack, that's not going to affect them because they're um, invulnerable. It's not going to add to this because the invulnerable is higher. So it's just going to really not help them that much. So it'd be interesting to see what, maybe boosting strength, because that would help both of them, because this will boost his strength since this is an AP AoE 1 attack. Okay, and then you have one hero. I was kind of lazy, did not make a lot of unique heroes. Maybe I'll add some more, but this is the early age Abysia hero. So I ported it to middle age. So the idea is that they don't do blood because, that was the whole point of their descent. But this guy, if you read the lore, he is Mulfas. He's implied to have brought the blood to Abysia because he changes shape into a demon. So he kind of corrupted early age Abysia, and he's now here in middle age to try to corrupt the Molten ones as well. So he gives you 4 blood, which is a lot. It can break you into blood, but remember, he's going to be the only one who can do blood things unless you empower. And he's considered a heretic 3, which is a fair amount, because he doesn't really fit in with the it doesn't fit in with the ideology of Rhuaxa. When he transforms into the demon, he also has an assassin, he's a pretty powerful assassin with these paths. But it's only one of him. Okay, so just briefly, I want to talk about some of the unique spells. Okay, so you have at Conjuration 3, you have a summon Children of Rocks. This makes 1 for 1 Magma Child. It can only be cast in caves. Early game, this might be a good use for your fire gems, but I would say as you move on, probably not. This is standard because they're part of that Africa realm. Level 4, this is where you get the spell to cast your summon, your sacred summon, Child of Catharsis. So this is 2 for 1 because they're more powerful. They're ethereal and they also have sacred. So this will give you 3 plus 1. So that means if you put a booster or on a purifier, or your capital guy gets a rare astral sacred, they can make 4 or 6. Okay, and then under evocation, I gave a unique spell called Molten Rocks, and I'll show in a demonstration battle how this works. This is a combination of fire darts and earth meld, sort of. So each projectile has a potential to do damage. Even if it doesn't do damage, it does an earth grip. It's less of a AoE than if you were to do earth meld, but it has a longer range and also does damage where earth meld does not. You also have access to liquid flames of Rhuaxa, just like the other Abyssias. Okay, so that's the only unique spells. It's not that many. Maybe I'll add more later. But I didn't want to make this like too different. I wanted to give you just new paths to play with an Abysia style nation. Because you're bigger on Astral, it gives you a potential to do other things other than just fire damage. And same with Earth. The way I kind of see you want to approach this the early game is you have 2 main ways to go early, in my opinion. Is you rush up evocation so you can cast, magma bolts and fireball, but also liquid flames of rocks, maybe all the way up to magma eruption, which is again very powerful spell that you can do easily, and flame eruption. Going this way will also give you access to Stellar Cascade and astral fires on your purifiers if they are in a communion. This is also a very powerful spell. So this is 2 reasons to justify going up high evocation early. Alternatively, another path I could see is going up high alteration for Earth Meld and Incinerate, but also for Solar Eclipse. So, the Purifier, who's 2 fire, 1 astral, can do this easily. And this is a way of boosting, the combat power of all your troops, because all of them have at least 50 Dark Vision. This is an easy way to get this. It's much harder for middle-age Abysia to cast Solar Eclipse. You need a random on a cap-only mage. It's pretty difficult. It's much easier for them. So, this will cause all of your Molten 1 troops to lose -1, Pale ones to lose nothing, but your enemy will lose -3. So this can kind of tilt battle in your favor. You also get Maws of the Earth at this level, which is, another potentially good spell because you have high Earth. And then another way you could maybe go is Thaumaturgy, because you have a different fire spells, especially the buffing ones. You can do Furious Warriors. Good way to boost your good scales troops. And then of course you have, Mind Burn and Paralyze and Soul Slay for Astral. So you may want to consider doing this, but there's not much to do with Earth here. So that probably has a lower priority. Okay. And I just wanted to show a demonstration battle. So this is like around level 20, we're taking our second throne. Different combination of troops here. So you can see they're throwing Geyser. These guys are throwing their magma rocks, and you can see when they hit, they do this nice little explosion. And see, they didn't do much damage here. Yeah, none of these really did any. This one did 16. So you can see it kind of varies. Okay, and then have some magma children mixed in here. These are your sacreds. And just to show over here, this guy, he was struck by a Molten Rocks, which is a custom spell. It did 0 damage. However, he has Earth Grip as a secondary effect. So it's something, if you don't go up Alteration, if you decide to go up Evocation, this is another way you can cast, you can do Earth Grip, but it's a lot less accurate because it spreads out. So just show the remainder of this. You can kind of see the different spells they're using. See, your guys are not immune. So this one, for example, he did catch on fire because he took damage from a magma bolt. Even though he has 20 fire resistance, but it's not going to affect him as badly as the enemies. You can see these guys are very resilient, even when some of these have 22 damage, because they have longer weapons. They have length 3 weapons they can repel. And the Berkerides take a malice from being underground, so their attack score is not very good. Anyway, so that's that, and you can see very low losses against a level 2 throne. Anyway, so that's my mod. Maybe you will consider downloading and playing it. I think it's pretty well balanced for vanilla. I don't think it's too overpowered. No crazy mechanics. There's a lot more skilled modders out there than me who can do like stuff with events. But that's just my demonstration, and I'll have the download link. And let me know in the comments if you have any feedback about what you think be done to adjust them or make them different. Thank you for watching.